examples, we have to be very careful with them in the da'wah and pay attention to them. If God commanded you to do something unjust, would you do it? We will say this conditional is a faulty one because it implies that God can be just and unjust at the same time. Just in the same way as if you said, can God lift the rock can God create a rock that he can't lift? We would say that's an impossibility because for him to do so, this would negate his omnipotence. So that rock is a meaningless rock. It doesn't actually make sense. It's because in the realm of impossibility, things don't exist. So the proposition of a just, an all just, true and good God commanding to evil is a self-contradictory proposition and is one which is meaningless by extension. So we should never entertain or answer this question. Like if someone asks you, okay, if God did ask you to rape somebody and kill someone, do this unjust thing, would you do it? Some people will say yes, and thinking that whatever God, whatever God commands is good. But God commands all the things that are in line with his goodness, so it's impossible for him to command something which is unjust. So those questions should never be entertained by Muslim people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carlos, I'm just going to throw out something for you and Sheikh Green, because I'm interested in this, because this is obviously the wider topic about no good, no God, no God, no good. So a few years ago, I heard Sheikh Green say in a lecture that a civilization is judged not by its buildings, but actually by how it treats its lowest denominators, orphans and widows and whatnot. So if we're to do a sort of a thought experiment here, can an atheist society provide the moral imperative for that type of paradigm where you're taking care of the lowest denominators, especially if the atheist society obviously is going to be subscribed to some form of Darwinism? Why would it do that? And what's the, like we've obviously given the Islamic perspective, but what would the atheist perspective for a society be?
Is that to me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I saw a debate that Richard Dawkins had with a Christian lady where that same topic came up, and I think he made the point that even though he believes, obviously, in Darwinian evolution, he believes that society should be anti-Darwinian in that sense. It shouldn't be a case of survival of the fittest, and that we should learn about the mechanism of Darwinian evolution to understand what to avoid. So I took that point quite to heart, and I think that's probably the basis of how atheists are able to account for being able to take care of someone that's at the lower end of society.
Can I chip in here?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone may turn on me after this, but just from just to I suppose add something from a non-religious perspective. Like you have to understand that Richard Dawkins comes from defending a particular position in evolutionary theory, right? So he's defending the idea of the selfish gene, right? This is his whole basis is the belief in the selfish gene, and that fundamentally we care about ourselves. This is definitely not the only theory out there in respect to how what do you call it, biological systems, what's the term I'm looking for, that various biological systems evolve, right? There is the idea of cooperation, there is even the idea of altruism, right? And that the whole idea that actually could be fundamentally programmed into biology. That the idea that it's the survival of the fittest may be a completely wrong theory altogether. Maybe that's not what drives evolution at all. Maybe evolution is driven by cooperation, controversially. So anyway, that's something to think about. But for me, it would still, a lot of these things ultimately end up begging a lot more questions. Obviously, it begs more questions about the probability of such a system being well, there not being a creator being involved in it at some stage. But yeah, anyway, so that's another possibility. I mean, you have to, it's awkward for Dawkins because of his insistence on his particular, his particular ideas about the selfish gene. But maybe Subboor can tell us more about that.
Well, Sheikh Green explained it well. The label is group selection perspective. That's the challenge to the selfish gene perspective. And exactly, science fluctuates. So if he holds this perspective because of his selfish gene perspective, then what's to say tomorrow when you get group selection, or you get someone turning around and saying, actually, they believe in a type of species selection. You'll always, and if you have, it sounds nice, by the way, group selection and species selection, but it can actually lead to some really dire consequences, because species selection could lead to situations where you just literally butcher certain elements of individuals simply because they don't help the survivability of the entire species. So, disabled people, old people, and people of, with certain mental deficiencies, you might just simply just take them out. So I think it's a very clever answer Sheikh Green said there, because if you are going to use science as a basis for morality, then if the selfish gene perspective is challenged by another, then you'll be in flux continuously. So it's not really an objective standard basis.
I think the other point that should be raised is what I can't remember the name of the author. He wrote the Darwinian delusion, Darwinian fairy tales.
David Stove.
No, not David Stove. Something ski. I can't remember his name. Anyway, it's not Stove. It's definitely not Stove. Kowinski or something, or he's a mathematician.
David Belinsky, The Devil's Deception.
Yes, sorry, you're right. That's it. The devil. Yes, sorry, you're right. It's the devil's. Yeah. So I mean, he. I think no. The one I'm referring to is Darwinian fairy tales. Yeah. So Jazakallah khair, you're right, Stoll. So as he points out in this book, is the sheer fact that there are human beings who choose to be celibate, and the sheer fact that we can produce a society that is not based upon Darwinian principles proves that Darwin, it's not true, because it's either true or it's not. Either it's a force of nature or it's not. You can't have it. It's like is there gravity on Earth or there isn't? It's not like suddenly, oh well, there's a little bit on Earth here where the laws of gravity suddenly don't apply, right? I mean, it's like. Does evolution, and the fact that people can choose to be celibate, and the fact that people can choose to be gay, by the way, is a proof that Darwinian forces are simply not at work. So it just shows that it's just not true, as he very rightly points out in his book.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can say, oh, well, we shouldn't apply Darwinian principles when it comes to society. Well, the fact that human beings have done it just proves that Darwinian principles are not true. They're not universal laws, and therefore it has to be re-examined.
Yeah, I'm happy to say.
I would just say that we
carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to say that we do see examples of morality in the animal kingdom, though. So how would you account for that?
So like bonobos and stuff, right?
Of altruism,
mammals. Mainly mammals. But
so those things, as Darwin pointed out in the earlier works, when it comes to his ideas, that if we were reared under different conditions, so if we were reared under conditions of hive bees, it'd be perfectly normal for mothers to kill their fertile daughters. So it's purely incidental that those are moral from our perspective, because if you look at sharks are they kill each other in the womb before they're born. So they start killing before that. So you can't just, I mean, if you are to do, and some like Franz de Waal and some other evolutionary theorists have said, well, bonobos, that's where we get humanism from. But why are you choosing bonobos and why aren't you choosing sea urchins, or why aren't you choosing something else? It's again purely arbitrary. And the book Sheikh Green is referring to, Darwinian Fairy Tales, just wanted to say something about it. It's written by an atheist. It's not a religious person saying Darwinism doesn't make sense. It's actually an atheist saying Darwinism is a slander upon human beings because we fund collectively through taxes the survival of the unfittest, aka hospitals. So there's many aspects of our behavior which makes no sense from a Darwinian point of view.